Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down Frankenstein. The brand new Guillermo Del Toro movie is now out on Netflix, and I was lucky enough to see it at the cinema earlier in the week. It's packed with a lot of things thematically, and they do some big deviations from the book. I've also just rewatched the original movie, and there's a lot to talk about there as well. Throughout this video, we'll be going through it all, pointing out the differences, and also giving our thoughts on the picture. Sound proper posh saying the picture, but with that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Frankenstein.
The tide that brought me here now comes to take you away.
Okay, so the movie begins with an expedition to the North Pole that finds itself trapped in the ice. Desperately attempting to escape, they see something strange in the wilderness. A man is found who's at death's door, and thus they bring him aboard the ship. However, something strange attacks the vessel, and it manages to kill some of the men. This hulking cloaked beast seems invincible and can regenerate from any wound. It also possesses superhuman strength and can smash the like button even if the video's terrible, which might come in useful. Now the healing factor is brand new for the movie, with that being the first major change from the book. This grants the creature with never-ending life, and it's something he at points views as being a curse. Life clings to him no matter what, and he has to witness tragedy after tragedy with those that he loves. Now Captain Anderson, the captain of the ship, he manages to send the creature to what seems like an icy grave, and this gives the crew some time to rest. It's in this that Victor Frankenstein explains the monster and recounts his very eventful life. Now, everything about Victor feels like it's laced with, a sort of self-hate. The character even despises his name, which he sees as his father choosing to show how he'll constantly win at life. This just makes him feel even more like he's a failure, but it does of course play into how he conquers death. Now, we learn why he was obsessed with doing this came from a personal tragedy that shaped his life. His mother died giving birth to his brother William, and I think this is what spurs him on to try and control death. The last time Victor's mother sees him, she touches his face, and this leaves him with a bloody handprint. This juxtaposes his father, who whips him on the other cheek while teaching him, and it adds a nice juxtaposition of who the loving one was. Now, another major departure from the work is that here Leopold is far more crueler than his book's counterpart Alfonso. Unfortunately, Victor ends up becoming just like his father, and he treats his own quote-unquote son with disdain. Victor even talks about the son at one point with a monster, but I feel like it was playing on him also being his child. But I digress. However, the son thing is important to point out. William quickly becomes his dad's favourite though, but it doesn't hold Victor back. Victor goes on to continue his studies, and he reanimates a corpse during a demonstration. This is heresy! Heresy, I say. However, it catches the eye of Henrik Harlander, who's willing to fund his work. As we learn though, this isn't without an ulterior motive. Harlander spent a night with Venus and now has to live a life on Mercury. Which is a nice line, a really nice line, but also just a poetic way of saying he slept with a woman and he's caught himself syphilis. It's eating him away from the inside, and he wants to transfer himself into the new corpse, and thus he'll be able to live again. Now, it's through him that we also meet his niece Elizabeth, who just so happens to be William's fiancée. If you read the book or watched the original film, then you'll know this is a massive change-up. In them, Elizabeth's engaged to Victor, whereas here it's sort of unrequited love. But they do kind of dabble and have what I imagine back then would have been a scandalous affair. It's simply scandalous. Now, Elizabeth is a bit weird, and she likes insects and bugs and stuff. She's sort of goth in a way. I think if you asked her if she was a goth, she would say,
"Me a goth?"
Anyway, with Harlander's help, Victor starts to assemble body parts. Harlander actually calls him Prometheus at one point, which is a nod to the title of the novel. Though often shortened to Frankenstein, the full title is actually Frankenstein or The Modern Prometheus, which isn't really that catchy, Mary, and I think you need to choose one or the other. Either way, while this is going on, Elizabeth and Victor get close. During a day, they catch a butterfly and put it in a cage, with it symbolically representing the creature. Victor ends up trying to contain and trap it, but ultimately it should be released into the world to make its own choices. This all comes to when Harlander starts demanding results, and when a storm hits, the truth about him is revealed. In this, he falls to his death, and a lightning bolt reanimates the creature. Victor then crashes out on bed and awakens to find someone watching him. Now, the film alters stuff a lot from the book and the original movie, and in the source material, Frankenstein's monster is intelligent from the off. Whereas here, he's sort of like a newborn baby. In the movie, it was, of course, the big hulking monster, but they also don't really go in that direction either. In the beginning, it has to learn to speak, and the first words it utters are Victor. This torments the scientist as he feels like he's lost, and this is made worse by the arrival of his brother. He showed up to the tower along with Elizabeth, and she becomes besotted by the creature. And what's another change, she's instantly taken by the monster and eventually falls in love with him. Frankenstein grows angry with him as he's the one who should be getting that, but she's been stolen by his brother and now stolen by his monster. So he concocts a lie and says the monster killed Hollander, and eventually he burns down the tower. He sees the creature as just being an empty shell with no real intelligence due to him not learning any further language. This is to the point he even ignores him saying Elizabeth, and it shows he's become the true monster. Yeah, mate, they do that bit in the movie where it's like, Frankenstein, he's the monster, mate. But I know people who, like, they would call the monster Frankenstein. But it's Frankenstein's monsters. Frankenstein's a scientist. As they say on the Weekly Planet, though, the real monsters are the people who point that out. Anyway, moving on from that side tangent, Frankenstein hears the creature crying out, Victor, and he goes back to try and save it. However, there's an explosion, his leg gets mangled, and the monster then manages to sneak away in a very, very convenient pipe that just so happens to fit him. Now this then takes him to the woods, and we've actually created a t-shirt inspired by this moment. That's down there at the merch store below, and we also have our brand new Predator Badlands one as well, which I'll move this out of the way for. And yeah, all our stuff from Welcome to Derry 2. The more you buy as well, the more of a discount you get, and it all goes towards helping videos like this get made. So thank you. Either way, the monster's attacked in the woods by some hunters. Finding where they live, it's here he learns the other side of humanity. Seeing a blind man who teaches his daughter a vocabulary, he also learns the ability to speak himself. As a kindness, the creature then builds the household things in the night, and they attribute this to the spirit of the forest. Now, the original movie had the blind girl, whereas the book had the man. Their intentions are pretty similar, with the creature revealing himself to the man once the house is empty. Now why that is because wolves attack the home and kill some of their sheep. Similar to the characters that the monsters met, he sees the complexity that comes with life. The wolves are neither good nor bad, just in the same way the hunters aren't either. They're merely protecting and hunting so that they can survive. The household then goes searching for the wolves, which is when the creature can reveal itself. Unfortunately, the blind man's killed by the wolves and the family arrive and attack him, basically leaving him for dead. It's here that he then returns to get Victor, which just so happens to be on the night of Elizabeth and William's wedding. Realizing he'll be #forever alone, he requests that Victor make him a companion. I'm sure you've heard of The Bride of Frankenstein, and even before seeing the movie, there was a trailer for a Bride of Frankenstein movie with Christian Bale called The Bride. I'm like, bloody hell, there's so much Frankenstein at the moment. But don't call the monster Frankenstein. Now from here we get some of our major deviations. Firstly, in the book, Victor actually agrees to make him a bride, whereas in this he says, nah, get the fuck out of here, you're not invited. In this story, the creature also kills Elizabeth rather than her dying after catching a bullet for him. She's in love with the monster and views them as kindred spirits, and thus is happy to sacrifice herself. People at the party then attack, and William's killed during this. The film also adds in his dying declaration, in which he says that he basically hates his brother. They also skip over an entire subplot in which Frankenstein's monster kills William and then blames it on the maid. Obviously in the book, you know, he possesses that intelligence, and thus he frames her, and she then goes and gets executed. Which, yeah, it's pretty dark. Now, during this, Victor suspects that the monster's the one who did it, and thus he goes basically hunting for the creature. But yeah, the movie skips over there, and Frankenstein then goes out and stalks it throughout the land. It leads to a constant game of cat and mouse, with the creature appearing to torment him before they then continue the chase. Over what I'm guessing is months and months, it eventually leads to the Arctic and brings things full circle from the opening. Now where we end is actually a complete tonal opposite to how things are in the source material, in that the creature arrives on the boat like how it does here. However, Victor dies aboard the ship while it sets out to return home. The creature comes on board and says that he plans to take his own life by burning himself on a pyre. It's a grim fate, and it's basically about despair and the tragedy that is life, and how we often don't get happy endings. There, I took it as a comment on the folly in trying to control death, and in the end, the character embraces it and goes off to meet his end. With him basically just being left alone in the Arctic, and you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's it, he's gonna go die now. However, yeah, the film ends upbeat with Victor telling him to embrace life. Victor also apologizes for how badly he mistreated him, and the creature ends up forgiving him. We then end with him on the ice embracing the sun, just like his dad taught him on his first day on Earth. He's going to go forward and find the things important to him and make sure he spends his time with that. This is also mirrored in the boat, who've now decided to head home. Throughout the movie, the captain's like, we're going to keep pushing on no matter what. We'll keep going on forward there, but the creature frees them, and now they can go home and go on to what's important to them. Spend your life on the things that matter, that sort of thing, like watching YouTube all day. We end with the creature looking towards the future, rather than the book version who's looking towards his end. The film surmises the more positive aspects of humanity, which involve forgiveness and letting pain fade away. If you forgive someone, they no longer hold power over you, and the memory of this being forgotten means the pain no longer lingers. When he was with the blind man, the pair talked about this fact, and the monster was torn up. He couldn't really remember his past. However, I think the film shows that pain, misery, and happiness, they're all things that craft our identities. So in the creature going through this, he's made himself go beyond the blank, unintelligent being that his father first saw him as. They also ask the question in the movie about which organ holds the soul, and there's back and forth over whether the monster has one. However, in doing this, he proves he does, and that Victor indeed succeeded in creating life. And he was the victor over death in the end, and now he's made something that can go and embrace life. It's an excellent ending to the film, and I think it improves on the original work. Beyond that, I was also blown away by Del Toro's directing, and it feels like a fairy tale brought to life. I actually got a lot of vibes of Edward Scissorhands, and it's almost magical at points. I've actually just rewatched Nightmare Alley, because they just released this 4K black and white extended version, mate, and I'm a true cinephile. But yeah, I watched this on Wednesday, and then went to see Frankenstein on the night, and it was basically a big Del Toro day. I think his entire style, what he's able to do with monsters, flawed characters, that sort of thing, it's quite unique in Hollywood, and though both those films are based off other things, he just does something stylistically that takes it to the next level. The way the camera moves throughout this, the changes, and overall heart he adds into his movies are what I think elevates his work. His horror movies aren't even really horrors, and stuff like The Orphanage or Pan's Labyrinth, it has elements of horror, but there's that feeling that it's a bittersweet study on life. Even though we're constantly dealing with monsters, I think the movies really speak to what it means to be human. And this is another great work by the director. Now, I don't think it's the masterpiece it's getting reviewed as, and personally I think it just falls slightly short for me of hitting that 5 out of 5. I do think Elizabeth is kind of underdeveloped, and they don't really flesh out a lot of her motivation. For example, she clearly likes Victor, but the next scene is dramatically hateful of him over very, very little. She's then head over heels with the monster, despite meeting him once. You met him once. I do really like Mia Goth though, and Infinity Pool is one of my favourite films, but I don't know, I felt like she was doing some heavy lifting for where her story didn't necessarily flesh out what was going on with the character. Your mileage is going to vary, and I have to say, though I sound like I'm dinging the movie, that's probably my only real criticism. The rest of the film soars, and I remember checking my watch at the 2-hour mark thinking, damn, I could actually spend another 2 hours in this world. I thought the story with the blind man was like a perfect standalone segment that you could just release on its own. It's got a great beginning, character development, and a tragic ending that just feels perfect. Oscar Isaac also plays the complicated, nuanced villain / hero of his own story, and he manages to handle everything that's thrown at him really, really well. We also have Jacob Elordi, who's unrecognizable as the monster. He really just sinks into the character, and at points you forget that it's him. I thought it was the lad from the end of Alien Romulus at points. I love how the more human looking he gets though, the more human he becomes, and I think it's just little touches like that that make this film leaps and bounds above some of the previous Frankenstein adaptations we've had in the past. Robert De Niro. I also remember the days where a Netflix movie used to be a dirty word, but the streamers really taking things to the next level. Even just down to them making a custom intro for this movie shows they're taking their care here. And slowly, I actually think they're carving out a reputation for quality films, especially in an era where we head towards things just being known as content, and people just clearly putting out anything. So yeah, I'm sure you can tell I really enjoyed it, and I also hope you've enjoyed us discussing the movie. Please drop a like on the video as well, and drop a comment with all your thoughts below. If you want to follow us on Instagram, then make sure you check us out at Heavy Spoilers, where we'll be keeping you up to date with everything we're doing. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos every week? If you click the join button, you get at least one breakdown a week before anyone else, and it all costs just 99 cents a month. Hopefully, That isn't a lot to you, but if a lot of you guys do it, it means a lot to us. Now, if you want something else to watch, we've got a breakdown of this weekend's other big release on screen right now, which is none other than Predator Badlands. Get yourself over there right after this if you haven't seen it, and if you have, mate, then go watch it again. With that out of the way though, thanks for watching this video. I've been your host Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.